Okay, so this is part 2 of the asteroid timeline in the Bible. If you didn't see it, there's a link below in the description box for the playlist, so you don't have to keep clicking on the link to go to the next part of the series. Okay, so next in Revelation 12 it says, "Woe to the inhabitants of the earth, for the devil has come down to you." So when the dragon is cast to the earth, the heavens are rejoicing, but woe to those that are on the earth. So at that point, when the dragon is cast out, there are two groups. There's those who are in the heavens and those who are on the earth. And notice it says the devil has come down to you, knowing that he only has a short time. That's important because it clarifies that this time period after the dragon is cast to the earth is a short time period. But then it says, when the dragon was cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman. So after the dragon is cast out, it persecutes the woman. So this is the timeline that it's giving us here. "And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, where she is nourished for a time, times and half a time, from the face of the serpent." So there's the escape again. The book is now saying that it happens after the dragon is cast to earth. So first it says the woman escapes, then the dragon is cast out. Now it's saying the dragon is cast out, persecutes the woman, and then she escapes. So it seems like a contradiction at first, but as we continue to read, it becomes more clear. So the dragon is cast to earth, it persecutes the woman, then the woman escapes for a time, times, and half a time. So this time, times, and half a time is also 1260 days. We know it's 1260 days for several reasons. Mainly in this chapter, we know that because it already told us in verse 6 right here that the woman escapes for 1260 days into the wilderness where she's fed by God. And then it repeats the same thing in verse 14. So that clarifies that the 1260 days is also referred to as a time, times, and half a time. So this time, times, and half a time is also 1260 days. And 1260 days is equal to 3.5 years. So this time, times, and half a time equal to 1260 days is also 3.5 years. And that makes sense because a time can represent 1 year, times then being 2 years, and half a time being half a year. But the question is, why does it refer to this time period here differently from the first time period? I mean, why doesn't it just say 1260 days, just like it did in verse 6? You know, the woman escapes for 1260 days in verse 6. Why doesn't it just say that in verse 14? And one possibility is that these are 2 different time periods, with the woman representing 2 different groups of people. But the second time period we know is a short time because it occurs when the dragon is on the earth, and the dragon is only here a short time. So while 1260 days can also represent 1260 years, we know it's not 1260 years here the second time, because that's not a short period of time. So this right here has to be literally 1260 days or 3.5 years. And that may be the reason that it's referred to differently from the first time period here, because it is a different time period. It's a time being 1 year, times being 2 years, and half a time being half a year, for a total of 3.5 years. It's a short time. Whereas at the beginning of Revelation 12, it's talking about a longer period of time, possibly 1,260 days or years. Okay, so next it says, the serpent cast out a flood out of its mouth after the woman, and the earth swallowed the flood. So the flood appears to occur sometime around when the woman escapes. It says the flood is cast out after the woman, but it doesn't get her. So the flood appears to occur when the woman escapes. Then the earth swallows the flood, so it dissipates, and then the dragon went to make war with the remnant of her seed. So this 3.5 year period here appears to also be the war against the remnant, or those who are left behind after the escape. So this is the chronology of Revelation chapter 12 right here. And again, the obvious question is, how does the woman escape before the dragon is cast out, but then also escape after the dragon is cast out? And from what I can tell, there are 3 possible reasons for that. The first reason, as I said before, could be that the woman represents 2 groups of escapees, with the first group is fleeing at the start of a 1,260 year period, and the second group escaping at the start of a 1,260 day period. And that may explain why the second 1,260 day period is referred to as a time times and half a time instead of 1,203 score days, because it represents a short time period of 3.5 years. So the chronology of Revelation 12 may be telling us that there will be a group who flees into the wilderness for 1,260 years, during which time there will be a war in heaven, and after the dragon is cast to earth, there will be another escape to a safe place for 1,260 days, or 3.5 years. But it does not tell us how long the dragon will persecute this second group right here. It only says there will be a flood and they'll be in a safe place for 3.5 years. So it doesn't clarify this persecution time period right here. And I just wanted to point out that there are a couple of other possibilities why it says that the woman escapes prior to the dragon being cast to the earth, and then later it says the woman escapes after the dragon is cast to the earth. Another possibility is that, that Revelation 12 simply is not chronological. I mean, that's one possibility. But the other possibility is that the dragon travels backward in time when it's cast to the earth. And I made a video on this. You can go watch it. I'll leave a link below. It's called The Dragon Falls to Earth and Changes History. It's just a bunch of clips from movies and television proposing that theory, that it's saying, okay, maybe it's saying the dragon was cast to the earth and went back in time. But if Revelation 12 is chronological, then the most likely explanation, I think, what seems most likely to me, is that the woman represents 2 groups. One going to the safe place before the dragon is cast to the earth, and the other going to the safe place after the dragon is cast to the earth. But the interesting thing is, the woman is obviously not 2 groups. It's one group. It's the bride. But it seems to be telling us that the bride is made up of 2 segments. And that made me think of 1 Thessalonians 4:15-17, which says, "We which are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord will not prevent those which are asleep." So this word translated as prevent, which is number 5348, it means to come before or precede. So we which are alive and remain shall not precede or come before those which are 28:37, which means dead. So we shall not come before those which are dead. So, for this we say to you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord shall not precede them which are dead. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Okay, so that trump that it's talking about, it's referring to the first rising. So, and then it says, then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. Okay, so there are two groups mentioned here. Both go to the clouds. And the first group, it says, is dead by the time the second group goes up. And the second group is the one that is alive until the coming of the Lord. So that seems to confirm the timeline that Revelation 12 is laying out here. And there are two segments of the bride. The first segment of the bride goes up before the dragon is cast to the earth. And by the time the second segment goes up, the first segment is dead. So that seems to confirm that we're talking about 1,260 years or longer between these two escapes. So those who are alive until the coming of the Lord are this second segment right here. And it says they'll be persecuted by the dragon after it's cast to the earth. Then they'll escape to the safe place for a short time, 1,260 days, 3.5 years. Then those left behind will be persecuted. So the bride is persecuted first, but the remnant aren't persecuted until the bride leaves. Okay, so here's where it gets even more interesting. In 686 CE, the first sign in Revelation 12 occurred. So I have a video on this. It's linked below. But this is a list of the celestial configuration that Revelation 12 describes and how many times it's happened since the year 0. So you can see here's 686 right here. And it wasn't near the 6,000 year time frame. All of this is explained in that other video. So if you haven't seen it, you can check it out. It's Revelation 12 occurred in 2012. It's linked below. But so 686 wasn't in the 6,000 year time frame, but it was significant because it occurred when the Dome of the Rock was being built over the ruins of Solomon's temple. So apparently they began building the Dome of the Rock around 685 and finished it around 691. And this event, this building of the Dome of the Rock, was a partial fulfillment of Daniel 12:11, which says, from the time the daily sacrifice will be taken away and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there will be 1,290 days. Blessed are those who come to the 1335 days. So the sacrifice was taken away in 606 BC, which is 1,290 years before they were building the Dome of the Rock in 685. From 685 to 691. So the abomination of desolation, so to speak, was that Dome of the Rock built over the ruins of Solomon's temple. And 1335 years after that is the year 2020. So that may be the blessed year, we don't know. But the Revelation 12 sign occurred right here in 686. So I'm going to have to stop again. And like I said, there's a link below to the playlist so that you don't have to keep clicking on it. You can just go watch the playlist. So I'll stop and start part 3 in the next video.